am I? I'm in a video game? I gotta get out of here. Maybe I need to collect something or beat a boss? Yeah, that sounds right. Let's go. Oh, pink polish. Oh, the music changed. The boss must be close. Oh. Hello, my children. Your father has brought you a new swatching video. Game. Holo Taco just released their new Pixel Perfect collection featuring 7 chonky glitter polishes in the rainbow.
Pastel.
Yeah, that's kind of important. All 7 polishes in the collection are in the same formula, that being holographic glitter jellies with a square pixel-shaped glitter as well.
Does it matter to say holo glitters?
Did I say holo?
Well, it's holographic glitter jelly with square pixel-shaped holo glitters. The pixel-shaped glitters are hollow.
And I'll get into more of this later, but I was truly expecting to hate this collection as I've never been a fan of chonky glitters, but these surprised me. Maybe not enough to change my mind and become a chonky glitter main, but perhaps less of a hateful monster towards chonky glitters after having the time to play with this collection. So today I'll be swatching the collection, comparing them to things in my collection, testing them over black, and maybe as a secret level do a Rainbow Pride glitter nail art. And now that we've completed the tutorial, let's start this game already. For all of these swatches, I'm starting with a Pilaf Does Basecoat because chunky glitters are a pain to remove with just acetone. If you don't know, a Pilaf Basecoat is a water base. That's why I'm confused, but reading is hard.
Because reading is what?
Difficult! If you don't know, a peel-off base coat is water-based, which can, as the name implies, be peeled off for easy removal. That said, its longevity is much lower than regular base coats, so I would not recommend this if you are someone who needs to wash your hands repeatedly for work. As for the swatching itself, I did 3 coats of every polish for consistency since the formula across all polishes are the same. First up, we have Byte My Peach. This is described as a peachy pink polish in the collection's formula. This collection is a pastel rainbow, so this polish fills the red-orange space. However, personally, I would describe this as more of a coral polish because it is lacking that yellowy tone that I would use to describe peach. And you can trust me on this because I am a coral polish expert now.
You saw coral polish twice and now you're an expert.
Yes. As for this application, there was still some visible nail line at the second coat, which warranted a third one. And one thing I noticed while swatching is that for some of these colors, the square glitter showed up a lot better than others. Not for this one though, because the square glitters didn't really stand out that much against the color and the other glitters.
Good.
Alright. Do-do-do-do, huh! Do-do-do-do, huh! Do-do-do-do, huh! You know what I'm referencing? There it is.
This is
Just scream. Okay, where were we? Oh, we were doing the formula. But before we get into the comparisons for this polish, I really quickly wanted to show other Holo Taco glitter polishes that feature a square glitter. So while this isn't the first time we have this formula, it is the first time we have a full rainbow in this formula, so I looked for polishes that had a similar color, since these are the only 3 polishes I have in this exact formula. One other thing I'm trying for this video is attempting to make a gradient, putting the new shade where it approximately belongs in the spectrum of comparison polishes, and I put a little star on the swatch stick for the new polish. Let me know in the comments how you feel about this, or if you like the new polish always being the first stick in the lineup. Anyways, back to Byte My Peach, I think the closest is Coral Chaser from Holo Taco's Pastel Linear Rainbow collection, further proving my recently developed coral identification skills. When putting it next to Peach Tea, which was the orange from the Pastel Linear Rainbow collection, it shows just how not peach this polish is. I also want to add, if I had Holo Taco's Xyler the Cat, I would have included it as it's also a chunky glitter orange polish, but I think it's more of a hot orange like Disco Inferno, as opposed to the coral orange in Byte My Peach. So I actually really liked this shade.
I think I'm starting to really like coral.
I was worried that this shade was going to lean a little too flesh nail on me, as a lot of coral things have the tendency to do that, but I think it was just punchy enough that it stood apart from the surrounding flesh. Additionally, I think it was a smart choice on Holo Taco's end to pick a coral as opposed to picking a pastel orange and a pastel red.
Did you forget the word red?
Yes. Words are hard. That allowed for the freedom to separate colors in the cooler end of the spectrum, which tend to be the more popular ones anyways. As we all know, Holo Taco customers are big fans of blues and purples, but I can forgive Holo Taco for giving us blues and purples because they gave us a full rainbow in this collection. So overall, I give this polish 4 Goombas out of 5. Moving on, we have Coin Toss. This polish is described as a neutral gold in this collection's formula. And y'all know that I have an affinity for gold polish, and this is no exception. Normally I love a very punchy gold, but this slight sandy or dried prairie grass color is just so interesting to me. In terms of application, there was a visible nail line at 2 coats, so once again, a 3rd was warranted. As for the pixel glitters, they also didn't stand out that much in this shade, but slightly more than the previous one. As for comparisons, I first thought of Gold Play Button, as that was Holo Taco's first gold chunky glitter polish. They are nowhere alike, as Gold Play Button is that more punchy, warm gold in comparison to Coin Toss's neutral, paler gold. Oop, quick pause, let's get that Titan hair and not trap it in that swatch forever. Lemon Spritzer, also from the Pastel Linear Holo Rainbow collection, is close, but is really a lemony yellow. But I did also grab Beach Please to show how it compares to a sand-colored polish. Ultimately, Coin Toss is deeper and maybe more brown-leaning, making this really stand apart from the other golds in my collection. And as I said, it's no surprise that I love this polish, but I was surprised we were getting a gold in this collection. When I was looking at what the detectives were digging up, I was getting worried that we were just gonna get more blues, pinks, and purples in a formula that I don't really love. But I was pleasantly surprised to discover that we were getting a rainbow for this collection, which means that Simply had to make a yellow polish. For me.
Just for you.
For me.
No one else is gonna buy it.
The way that's correct, though. No one buys the yellow polishes.
I mean, you say that, but then...
No, they're like the least selling ones. Hey look, Lemon Spritzer, Lemon Sucker, Amber Apathy, all 3 in the bottom 10 of 2023. All 3 are the golds, yellows from each rainbow collection. This is gonna get discontinued. Anyways, I would give this 6 Pac-Mans and 2 Mrs. Pac-Mans out of 5. And next up, we have Bonus Life. This polish is described as a mint green in this collection's formula, and the color description threw me for a loop. Did it throw you for a loop too?
Why do you look like that?
Years and years and years of selective breeding that turned the mighty wolf into this. This abomination of a creature that we love with all of our heart.
He's not an abomination.
God didn't make you. I did. And the color description threw me for a loop, because I really don't see mint here. But this could be because I personally believe that mint should be legally required to stay in toothpaste where it belongs and never be allowed to explore anywhere else in the culinary world. Like, we Googled mint and just got frustrated. Who gave human people the right to name 1,400 bluish-greenish shades mint? Who? And while this color did show up in that Google search, I really feel like this color looks more like a greenish aqua or a kind of algae-filled ocean. Anyways, back to this application, I feel like 3 coats was mostly enough. There was still some visible nail line by the 3rd coat, but it wasn't particularly egregious because it was kind of hidden by how busy all the glitters are in this polish. And speaking of the glitters, we are starting to see a little bit more of these square glitters, but it still doesn't stand out that much against the backing color. As for comparisons, I first thought of Everything is Pine, which is Holo Taco's first green chunky glitter polish. Bonus Life is nothing alike, and honestly, seeing all of these greens together, it really looks like I snuck a blue polish into this lineup. But back to my mint rant, I grabbed Mint Money and Mint Mojito, which are 2 other polishes from Holo Taco that both have mint in their name. While my bottle of Mint Money has tarnished slightly over time and has since pulled a little bit more yellow, these 2 are what I think of when I think of the color mint. That and gross. Why is this in a cookie? If I wanted to taste mint, then I would suck on a tube of toothpaste like a Go-Gurt. Okay, so me being a mint flavor hater aside, I do actually like this shade. It is green enough that it still looks like the green part of the rainbow, but it's also just blue enough to give it this like aqua summery vibe. but it does lose some points because it looks pretty similar to the next shade, so 3.5 plum bobs out of 5. Moving on, we have 8-bit blues. This polish is described as an aqua blue in this collection's formula. And I do see aqua in this one because it has that light blue and greenish vibe to it. I don't have any aqua rant here, I just have this fun hat. Well, that one. As for the application, 3 coats was sufficient, but there was this visible nail line awareness zone. Like, I couldn't see a clear line where the nail passes the finger, but there is this zone where there's a little bit of color difference on the nail. This wasn't as bad as the last shade, however, so ultimately I'm not that mad at it. As for the glitters, we're starting to get to more of the saturated shades, so that could be why the square glitters are a little bit more apparent now. As for comparisons, it's comical that I grabbed so many, as the most important thing I wanted to show was how this looks like the previous shade. When directly next to each other, they are quite similar, as I would argue they are blue or green leaning variants of the same basic shade. Like, I bet Linry's fiance wouldn't even be able to see the difference. And if you don't know who Linry is, she's another nail polish creator who has a series of videos where she tries to dupe new polishes with her collection and see if her man can see the difference, and usually he can't. Please go show her some love, as she's hilarious and you're in for a great time with her videos. So color similarity aside, I do like this shade, I just wish it was a little further apart from the last one. Honestly, if I was not someone who received this in PR, nor someone who, before that, was collecting all Holo Taco polishes for the most part, I probably wouldn't have purchased this and the previous shade. Like, don't get me wrong, they are distinctly different shades, but unless your Pokemon gotta catch them all, you probably don't need both. Especially because there is another blue-leaning shade in this collection that is more distinctly different from the mint. Anyways, because of some redundancy, I'm giving this one a 3.2 gotta go fasts out of 5. And next up, we have Lo-Fi Lavender.
It's lavender.
I really wonder if people are going to get that.
Lo-Fi lavender.
It almost sounds like you're saying, but we don't support JK Rowling. Turfs. This is described as a cool lavender in this collection's formula. I definitely see the lavender, but it looks a little bit more denim to me, as it's more on the cooler side than on the purple side. However, I'm not that mad because there is another purple polish in this collection that is a more purple, so to me this one fills the indigo spot in the rainbow. Wow, look, colors filling an actual gap as opposed to sharing a gap in the rainbow.
At the green and the blue.
I still really like this collection though, so I can't be that mean. I really genuinely love it. As for the application, this one was thinner and I strongly considered a 4th coat. This could be because my stained nails were poking through or I was painting coats on the thinner end, but I feel like I could see what I was seeing in the last 2 polishes the most with this one. However, on the other hand, this polish was one of the most holographic out of the bunch. The square glitters are more noticeable, and having the darker, yet slightly thinner base allows the holographic to shine through. As for the comparisons, I think in isolation this looks more blue, but next to other cool purpose...
It's so funny that I read this and that I still leave the mess ups in.
Yeah, because you want me to suffer.
No, it's because I want the moment to happen.
Yeah, that's fair.
This is your moment.
Have it. As for the comparisons, I think in isolation this looks more blue, but next to the other cool purples, it fits in pretty well. Once again, the closest is Lavender Syrup in Holo Taco's pastel linear collection, so while I may be a self-proclaimed expert on coral, I don't think I can hold on to that title with Lavender. However, when putting it next to other purples, it does ultimately show how blue-leaning the polish is. So even though this was on the thinner side, I do ultimately still like it. Away from other purples, this really does look like a blue polish, which is why I actually used this instead of 8-bit blues in my rainbow holo nail art that I'll show you later in the video. Plus, the overall aggressive holo sparkle in this gives it 4 ocarinas out of 5. No, 3.8. Also, I don't know why I went like this, 3.8.
Hold up 2 fingers now?
I did. Is it because I'm like anime? Finger dab. Moving on, we have Glitch and Glam.
Like glitz and glam. What's the reference?
I never understood that.
I didn't until like recently. I think it's supposed to be.
How recently? Why haven't you told me? I wrote a whole script.
I don't know.
This is described as a warm purple in the collection's formula. And I'm not going to be a brat about the description of this color because I think it fits pretty well. And I think it was actually a really smart choice to choose a warmer purple because it rounds out the rainbow really nicely, connecting it back to the coral. As for the coverage, since this was one of the most saturated colors, it had no problem getting to full opacity in the 3 coats.
God, you're gonna make me wiggle.
I am gonna make you wiggle. I know, it's okay, sweetheart.
It's gonna be so bad.
No, you learned last time, remember?
No, I don't remember, and that's the problem.
Also, I found that this was probably one of the most holographic polishes out of the set, probably because the deeper base helps the holo shine and those square glitters stand out the most. Okay, it's time. Up, down, up, down. Good. You're doing great, sweetheart. As for comparisons, Inside Job is another chunky glitter polish that also features a square glitter. However, it is much darker, giving Glitching Glam its own place within my collection. I did also want to put it next to Glitterily Purple to show how that is almost a pink-leaning purple, but ultimately still a purple polish. Which I think shows how warm Glitching Glam is, but definitely not a pinky purple. So overall, I like this shade. I don't often turn to purple when I go to paint my nails, so I probably won't wear it in isolation again.
You didn't wear this at all.
Yeah, I wore it for the swatch.
No, you didn't. That was my finger. You're lying to your children.
Bruh.
So I'm probably just never gonna wear it then. Well, no, is it on this? Not in isolation though. I will say I do like how distinctly different it is from the other purple in this collection. I probably would have still purchased both if I was doing this myself in order to close out the rainbow. So I'd say this polish gets 3.7 Spyros out of 5. And rounding out this collection, we have the pink CTRL Cutie. This is another one I don't get.
I don't have anything.
Like,
Control, delete.
right, but CTRL Cutie? This polish is described as a medium pink in the collection's formula. And I think the medium in this case applies to the fact that it's somewhere in between a bubblegum pink and a hot pink. Look, I'm not a pink expert. This ain't coral.
This ain't coral.
36 minutes.
Na na na.
William, we are going to run out of memory on this camera before we finish. Now, pink aside, I was initially a little butthurt that pink was selected for this rainbow and not a pastel red, but ultimately I think that was the right choice. While pink is I think that if they did a pastel red and a pastel orange, we'd probably be in the same position with the mint and the blue polish earlier in this video. As for the coverage, this one did apply well in 3 coats, even though it was on the thinner side. And because they went with a deeper pink, the square glitters were able to show a little bit more. As for comparisons, I tried to grab a range of pinks to see where this fits in between. Unlike the pattern of this collection, this one is actually quite different from the pink equivalent in the Pastel Linear Holo collection. Pink Fizz is a cool leaning pink, while CTRL Cutie is a warmer pink, likely because it is intended to fill the pastel red location within the rainbow. So it should come as no surprise that I don't love this polish, cause I'm a certified pink polish hater. And on my arbitrary 5 scale, I'm gonna give this -1 Birdo because it's pink, but also +1 Kirby because pink polish lovers will probably love this one. And here is the collection altogether. I think overall it is a really nice interpretation of a pixelated pastel rainbow, but that shouldn't be too surprising because Holo Taco is pretty known for their rainbow holo collections. And speaking of holo, this collection really punches you in the face with holo in every spot it can by having different sizes of the glitter pigments. Although I will say I was struggling to capture the beauty of these polishes on camera. I think because there are larger glitters mixed in with the smaller ones, my eyes struggle to focus on each individual glitter when I'm looking at it on my hand, and it always has that slight out of focus look that makes holo look so much more impactful, while my phone is able to show every glitter in focus, diminishing the overall holographic effect. Well, that or I don't have as good a vision as I thought I did.
Well, you've never been to the eye doctor, so...
I can read. Well...
I can read too. I'm reading you right now.
For filth. I did want to add that Holo Taco recommends applying 2 thick coats of glossy top coat in order to smooth everything down. I usually do fairly thick coats of top coat, so 1 didn't bother me, but I painted 2 as recommended. Nail Husband, on the other hand, strokes his nails all day like an evil scientist in his volcano lair petting his cat, so he's not a fan of the texture and was still bothered after 2 coats, which is why he took this off right after filming.
I'm really stroking my nail right now.
That is why I wrote that. You're just... And before we get to the post game, I wanted to test how these polishes look over black. Since they are ultimately jelly polishes, if applied in thin coats, they can potentially work as toppers. And as I was applying, I was realizing that the glitters are more pigmented than I thought, as I initially thought they were all silver glitters in a jelly base. However, most of the colors maintained a little bit of their shade when applied this way. I will say when zoomed out, it is a little difficult to see their beauty, but when a little closer, they all look like a colored, chunky glitter topper. And low-key, it's difficult to pick out a favorite from this bunch. So I know this is becoming an every time thing, but every time Holo Taco releases a new collection, I have a lot to say. When I saw that we were getting a rainbow collection in a unifying formula, I realized that it's been a long time since we've had a collection like that. And then I realized how weird it felt that we were getting a rainbow collection without a collector's box. I know Christine has talked about scaling back on the collection boxes, which ultimately I believe is a good idea, but some of my favorite collection boxes were from Rainbow Collections, as I feel like that's just quintessential old school Holo Taco. So while I'm saddened that we don't have a box, I'm ultimately more confused as we're almost halfway through the year and we still haven't gotten a collection box when this could have been the perfect opportunity for one. However, I didn't chug the haterade because I ultimately really like this collection, pink polish and all. Chunky glitters have always been in Holo Taco's lineup, and we've gotten an array of colors in the past. But by adding the pixel-shaped glitters, it really just makes this more impactful and interesting, and just feels fresh overall. On top of that, I personally love how metallic these look in indirect lighting. One of my problems with holographic stuff is it really only looks good in spotlighting. But by adding this metallic tone to it, it just makes it look really interesting even when the holo is not doing its thing. I honestly thought that I was going to hate this collection and make a much more negative video because I'm usually not a big fan of chunky glitters or pastel polishes. But as I was playing with them, I was falling more and more in love. Which is why, even though this collection came in a little later than I expected and I knew I was going to be making this video in a time crunch, I decided to play with the polish anyways and do a nail art. Do a nail art? Let's do a nail art. I want to do a nail art. Lock the doors tight.
They have a new album coming out.
We should probably listen to them before we go see them. Ooh, 18 minutes. But the first thing I had to do was get naked. Whoa, 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 calm down, just my nails. Now that the Pilaf Burlesque show was done, I wanted to play with these shades to see how they would work for an easy gradient. I painted thin coats of orange and green on opposite sides of the nail with thin coats of gold down the middle. Be sure to wipe the brush on a paper towel between coats in case it picks up any of the previous colors to not infect your bottles with the wrong color. And with 3 coats, it established a pretty decent blend. Initially, I was going to cycle through the colors down my finger, but I wanted to keep playing with this. So I grabbed my medium length skinny nail art brush and painted 2 more colors on either side of the rainbow to have 5 colors on my nail. I found that I had to paint thicker coats than I normally would to make sure it covered the lower color sufficiently, but with some thinner layers to help establish the blend, it all came out nicely. And since it looked so good on my thumb, I felt invigorated and ready to record this on the rest of my hand. But god damn it, I did it backwards. Yes. So you don't get to see that, let's just go into the reveal shots. Honestly, this was incredibly easy as it's not called a lazy gradient for nothing. I think it took maybe 1 or 2 Lil Simsy videos to paint, so for those of you who don't know, that's typically less than an hour. The blend worked really well and was way easier than I thought it would be, especially on my pinky finger. But also, let's take a moment to appreciate the square glitters here. They somehow stand out more than when each color is worn separately and are out here giving this neon cat look, just minus the Pop-Tart, so I'm a big fan. And before we wrap things up, it's time for the WOMOH. WOMOH time, WOMOH time, do WOMOH time, WOMOH time, WOMOH time, what's on my other hand time? I'm wearing Charred by Cracked, which is a smoky black polish with gold glitters, topped with Golden Starlight by Starly, which is a gold reflective topper. I really like gold, okay? I was really loving this combo, but just before filming, I chipped a nail pretty badly. So I wanted to keep up the dark plus gold vibe, so I went with one of my prototype shades with for our so be on the lookout for that. So now that you've seen everything, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Do you think these shades are next level, or is your polished princess in another castle? But as always, don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video, and I'll see y'all in the next one. Bye. 9 minutes and 38 seconds left.